The members of the UN Security Council have unanimously agreed to step up sanctions against North Korea a month after the communist state carried out a third nuclear test. And just hours ahead of vote, Pyongyang threatened what it called aggressors with a preemptive nuclear strike in response to the ongoing US joint military drills with South Korea. RT's Inet Protect has the details.
Well, North Korea is definitely paying the price for that nuclear test. Last month, the UN Security Council has unanimously condemned the test, and now they also unanimously voted on a resolution to strengthen sanctions on North Korea. Yet again, the sanctions will target North Korean banks and cash couriers who might be funneling money to the regime's nuclear and missile programs. The resolution also outlines measures to step up scrutiny of suspicious sea shipments and air cargo, and it expands restrictions on several institutions and senior officials in North Korea's weapons industry, as well as a range of materials and technology known to be used in uranium enrichment. This is just yet another round of sanctions on North Korea. You can say the world is united on that, although China is North Korea's ally. It too condemned the test together with all other members of the Security Council. North Korea carried out nuclear tests in 2006, in 2009, which prompted the Security Council to impose sanctions, including a ban on the import of nuclear and missile technology and an arms embargo. Well, 2 months ago, they tightened those sanctions against Pyongyang in response to its December rocket launch. And now there's some doubts on the effect of those sanctions. What's also contributing to the tension, the US and South Korea started their joint military exercises this week. The combination of sanctions and military drills by the US and South Korea has sent the isolated regime in Pyongyang into a frenzy of threats. North Korea has called the annual drills an open declaration of war. So further military buildup around North Korea could actually add to the simmering tensions.
And co-founder of the National Campaign to End the Korean War, Eric Sirotkin, is joining us now live for more. Eric, very nice to have you on the program. So the North Korean government once again issued a very serious threat of a preemptive strike, right? So what are they planning to achieve by appearing so aggressive?
Well, they're trying to express their independence, if you will, their independence from China, their independence as a nation to a country, the United States, that doesn't recognize their independence, has failed to recognize their right to exist by even recognizing them as a nation and formalizing some type of diplomatic relations. And so the response is certainly to garner some attention, but we've heard a lot of these things before. It's not new to hear rhetoric coming out of North Korea that will turn Seoul into a sea of fire and some of these other types of things. The problem is threats about nuclear weapons and the use of nuclear weapons preemptively is something frowned upon and something illegal under international law. And the United States in 2002 said in their nuclear posture review that North Korea is a target for nuclear preemption by the United States. So really, we've got to use this as an opportunity to come up with a new approach.
Also, China seems to have changed its stance to support these sanctions. What's behind that? The new leadership, or has Pyongyang gone too far?
No, I think at this point in time, it's just a question of China beginning to get nervous about whether this conflict in Korea will ever resolve itself and whether there is something about having nuclear weapons on its borders that perhaps it doesn't control is something that makes Beijing a little bit nervous, perhaps. But really, the sanctions themselves aren't going to make a huge difference in this conflict. And I think going along with it, whoever knows what gets decided and traded off in the back door of politics. But I think it's really the Koreans who are stepping forward, the North Koreans at this time, and are trying to exert their autonomy strongly. And China is sort of saying here, we oppose the use of nuclear weapons in the region in efforts to destabilize the region.
And also North Korea claims the development of nuclear arms, if necessary, to safeguard the country. So could this defend itself this way?
Well, I think it's a deterrent when you're named originally in the axis of evil and you're seen as enemy by United States or South Korea. You are on a defense. And as you mentioned in your lead story, these military exercises are continuing. These are exercises with tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of troops engaging in simulated attacks along the border of your nation and your country. It always inflames the situation. When are we going to grow up out of this situation, step back and freeze these military exercises and do what John Kerry said last week? Go to the bargaining table. But you can't go to the bargaining table on one hand and run these military exercises on the other. We've got to avoid this sort of schizoid politics.
Right, and actually this is the third time the UN is using sanctions against Pyongyang. So can we expect a different result this time?
I don't think so. They're talking about limiting yachts and luxury goods, something you don't see a lot of in Pyongyang, really. You're talking about money. What you're going to see a difference is they said they're going to limit money that might go toward nuclear technology. Well, that means limiting cash. When it means limiting cash for a country that can't feed itself because it doesn't have enough arable land to even do so, you're talking about taking food out of people's mouths. So we have to examine why we use sanctions as something that is, in essence, a weapon of war. And it cannot be used in this way because we're going to be taking money out of a country that needs the money to feed itself. So in the end, sanctions really ends up hurting people in a country who need it the most. And I think we have to get over this and see that sanctions haven't worked. It hasn't worked in Cuba and other places for decades. In Iraq, it didn't. We had to go into a war. It didn't stop Saddam Hussein. These sanctions have generally ended up killing people on the ground, and really we need to get a lot more creative than that.
All right, Eric Sirotkin, co-founder of the National Campaign to End the Korean War. Eric, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.